So what metrics do you measure when it comes to lead generation success? Let's say, for example, you've been working with multiple lead generation companies and you're trying to essentially get to the bottom of which one's performing the best.
So obviously, in my opinion, the only metric really you should be looking at is return on investment.
Yep.
What profit do you make? It should be really as simple as profit and loss that you should be looking at. The amount of people that obsess over cost per lead as opposed to cost on conversion. Yep. And not only cost on conversion, but cost on conversion versus profit you're making. So let's say I have a conservatory and I convert that inquiry that comes in, but it's a small conservatory for £4,000 and I make £1,000. All right, it's good that it's converted, but if I go and convert another inquiry and it's a £15,000 conservatory and I make £6,000, well, obviously that lead, that conversion versus what profit I've made is worth a lot more. So it's not just individually what the cost per acquisition is in its own. I've converted this one lead at £400. If you only make £400 and you're breaking even, if it's costing 400 and you're making 2,000, then it's good business. Yep. So the main one is making certain you've got your KPIs in place. Make certain you can work back on what kind of conversion rate you're normally working to, which normally is around 10%. From lead to conversion is around 10%. So if you know if you're buying the lead at £50 per lead and it's at 10%, that's costing you £500 cost per acquisition. As long as you're making more than £500, you might then say that it's worth it. If it's only making £600 or £700 for the service, you might say it's not. So you've got to know your numbers. And in my opinion, the main number you should be looking at is return on investment.
Yeah, it's we obviously speak to a lot of business owners and they don't know how vanity metrics works. So like they might be looking at cost per click or cost per view and stuff like that. And it's like, well, you could get 1 million views tomorrow if you spend enough money, and it might not generate you any inquiries. So definitely, I think the one metric or the couple of metrics that I would be looking at is ROI and cost of acquisition of the actual client. Is it costing you £50? Is it costing you £300? Is it costing you £1,000? And then obviously working it back that way, making certain that if it's costing you £1,000, okay, that's fine, but are you making profit off that £1,000? Or maybe you're selling conservatories and that conservatory might be a £13,000 job. So okay, perfect. You should be making a lot of profit there.
Yeah. I mean, the examples I gave was like a service-based where they're making instant money. The only bit in there that we could throw as being a little bit of a caveat is certain metrics that you should also be looking at is average transactional value and lifetime value, right? Because you mentioned there that not only is it about per lead, right, of what's coming through and the acquisition and obviously the return on investment, if you know your lifetime value, you might be willing to pay X amount, which could be £20 for a Twitter follower or a subscriber on YouTube or for someone to be added to your newsletter, because you know, generally speaking, that if someone gets added to your newsletter, generally speaking, your average lifetime value is £200. Yeah. So if you're acquiring someone into your newsletter at £20, that might be good business. Now, you're still looking at it from a return on investment standpoint, but at that point, you need to be knowing your long-term lifetime value. So there is different metrics you can look at, like you said, lifetime value, average transactional value, cost per acquisition. If you know all the metrics, you can start looking at cost per lead. And if you do know cost per lead, you can then start looking at cost per click on PPC or impressions. If you start knowing exactly how many impressions turn into how many clicks turn into how many subscribers turn into paying customers. Yep. But it's just about knowing your metrics. It's a great video to do because we're talking about numbers and talking about metrics. The amount of business owners we speak to that don't know the numbers and then they're coming to us looking to blindly do lead generation, and you're like, you need to know your numbers. It's the most important part of any business. The success of anything is know your KPIs and know your numbers.
I'll give a prime example of businesses that actually do know their numbers. So there's a lot of mechanics in the UK. And in the UK, we've got something called MOT. Now, I don't think that's a thing in America. I could be wrong, but to legally drive a car, you need to get a yearly MOT done, and that typically costs about £30 to £40. Now, the mechanic actually doesn't make that much money on that. They might make £10 profit, but they're actually betting on the fact that when you bring your car in, it might need like an oil service, or it might need new brakes, or it might need new tyres, and that's where they make their money. So in some cases, a lot of businesses, they give like a lost leader away, knowing that their average transactional value or their lifetime value of a client is maybe £600. So if they're giving away £100, they're like, brilliant, that's fine, because I'm going to make £500 profit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the metrics are very important. There is a few different metrics. If you are looking at metrics with regards to lead generation, something that I would definitely be doing is that if you are in the kind of shopping list of going, okay, I'm looking for the best lead generation companies, head on over to fatrank.com, fill in the form. We do a no-win, no-fee lead generation service if you qualify, where you don't pay anything for leads. We guarantee you the return on investment. You only pay on converted jobs. So we kind of take all the metrics away from you that really you start worrying about, like impressions and clicks and cost per lead and cost per acquisition. You don't really need to worry about all that. We need to worry about it ourselves because we know our numbers inside out, and we need to be making certain that you're converting the inquiries well enough, that you're responding to the leads quick enough, that you've got case studies and testimonials that you're able to make this lead into a conversion that you make profit out of. Then we just get paid a commission or a finder's fee on the back of that converted job. So head on over to fatrank.com, fill in the form, and see whether you qualify.